Once a project has been initiated, it's expedient that you get a high performance team to run that project. And now getting a high performance team to run that project, once you get the team together, the team they have a responsibility to plan the project. Now, I'll tell you something. If I ask you guys, let's plan a vacation. All 28 of us, let's plan a vacation. The best thing for me to do is to give all of you a responsibility. If I don't give you a responsibility, you could be disengaged. And when I mean by disengaged, I mean you feel you're not part of it. You understand? More so, we're a virtual team at the moment. So you're going to feel I'm not carried along in this whole game. Now, but once I begin to give all of you a responsibility, almost immediately, everybody wakes up to their responsibility. Do you get the picture? Now, and once you've put together a team, the team has the responsibility to what? Plan the project. Now, let's get into today's work and see what are we going to be doing. There are about 9 areas you're going to spend time to plan. First and foremost, we need to be able to determine what will be the appropriate project methodology. Is it going to be agile? Is it going to be hybrid? Is it going to be predictive? Once we're done determining that, we're going to have to look at what? Planning the scope. What exactly are we doing? That's the scope now. Then we're going to dig into what? Planning the schedule. What is the time we would use to do this? How do we break this time into what? Bits and pieces. Now, for your project work, I would love to see you plan a schedule. To be fair, I would love to see you build a schedule map, either using a Gantt chart. I'm going to show you all the different ways you could build a schedule map. Now, we're going to go into what? Budget, planning the budget. We're going to go into talking about planning of the quality, planning the integration. We're going to plan procurement. We're going to establish a project governance structure. Who's going to govern this? And then the last thing we're going to do is to plan how we would close the project or the phase. Ready to go? All right. Now, if you've been following us up till this very moment, you would appreciate the fact that a project manager has a number of responsibilities or a number of things where he has to put his feet down on. First and foremost, he must put his feet down on the 3 domains of project management, the 3 domains. And what are the 3 domains of project management? There are what? People, there are what? Processes, and there are what? The business environment. We were very big on that in our first class. We discussed the 3 domains. You must manage people, you must manage the process, and also you must manage the business environment. You must make sure nothing fails. Got that? Awesome. Thereafter, you're going to have to put your legs down too to manage the 10 knowledge areas, which I'm going to show to you in the course of today's class. And then you're going to have to be aware that these 10 knowledge areas comprise of about 49 processes. You might not be big on trying to know all of them, but the more you understand the knowledge areas, the more you would understand the process. And then the last one is to also put your legs on understanding how to manage the 5 process groups. And what are the process groups for one? One of them is what? Initiation, planning, execution, monitoring and control, and then closing. In our first 2 classes, we spent a big deal looking at initiation. Today, we're going to be looking at planning, And by the time we're done with planning by next week, we're going to go into what? Execution. Then monitoring and conclusion and controlling. And finally, we're going to go into what? Closing. So, any question up to this point?
No, we're good.
Good. All right. Now, while I'm not going to be here, all the things I've explained, the 3 knowledge areas, the domains, it breaks them down into a chart. So I wouldn't want to be big on this for today, but when you get your material after the class, just print it out and see if you understand it. In our last class, I'm going to revise or walk all of you through these chart. But for now, just see if you understand what you have there. Open it up, see if you understand it. I'll walk you through the whole pathway in our last class. All right, let's keep going. We've discussed the process groups already: initiation, planning, execution, monitoring and control, and then closing. Let's keep going. The journey. I believe you guys remember this diagram. We had it in our first class. The initiation journey. So how do projects start? I would love to see your own initiation journey in your project, which is you telling me, how did it get started? What was the business case? Why did they have to do that project? So the business case is, are we doing this? Are there no alternatives we could do? Then a charter is awarded, which is given to you as a project manager to say, you go ahead and manage these things. Now, when you get given a charter, you're going to what? Amass a team. So yes, in our first two classes, what did we do? Building high performance team. Now, this team is going to what? Go into what? Planning. If you were in our first class, this slide should be very fun for you to understand this class already. So let's go. Now we're going into planning directly. And the very first thing, when you want to make any plan, is to ask yourself the question, first and foremost, this project, what kind of methodology and practice am I looking at? Guys, I'm going to stop here and say, please pay attention. The nuances I'm going to be talking about at this point, just so that you can pick it up once and for all. What methodology and practices am I going to work with at this point? Now, you're going to come to appreciate why I use the word methodology and practices. Now, before I come back to this, I want to spend time on methodology and practices. So I'm going to go past that place. I'm going to come here first. Now, what is it here? There are 3 methodologies. You and I agree. It was what? Agile, predictive, and what? Hybrid. Who remembers? Who remembers?
I do.
Okay, I just want to be sure we're together.
Yeah, I remember.
Good. Now,
I'm also.
Good. What is it about Agile? We said there are 4 values of Agile. Who remembers that also in our first 2 classes? There are 4 values of Agile. 4 things that makes that you can, when you see those 4 things in display, you know this is an Agile project. Now, first and foremost, allow me to first explain Agile in the context of religion. I think I did this yesterday, but I'm not too sure, but I'm going to just reiterate it now. Now, if you don't have any idea about religion for one, not to worry, but try to follow us and then you will pick up the notes. Let's use 2 religions that I'm aware of because it's practiced very close to me. At least I have families on both sides. Christianity and Muslims. So I have families on both sides now. Now, for you to be a Muslim, now the first things you're going to have to do is that you are required to pray 5 times a day. Those guys who are Muslims, please tell me if I'm right. Hmm?
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah,
You're
yes,
right.
you're right. Thanks.
Yeah.
Now, that's a requirement. It's a must for you as a Muslim to pray 5 times a day. Another thing that is required of you to pray, to do, is to hold a fast for 30 days in a year. 30 days in a year. I think it's called the Ramadan fast. I think that's all.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah. 29 or 30.
Correct.
Yeah, what do you say?
I said 29 or 30.
29 or 30. Thanks, Isan. Good.
It depends on the year.
It depends on the year. All right, awesome, guys. Thanks for the input. Now, what other things do you guys hold sacred that is a must for every Muslim? Can anyone give me one more?
Giving charity to the poor.
Okay, giving charity to the poor. So you see, there are 3 strong values every Muslim must have. However, guys, listen, the way they practice their service as Muslims could be different. Some of them are Shiite, some are Sunnis. I don't know, that's the only 2 I'm aware of. Are there more than 2? Are there more than 2?
Yeah, there are so many.
There's so many. All right, thanks, Shabab. All right, cool. So now the way they practice these core values as Shiites is different from the way they practice these core values as what? Sunnis and what have you. Does that make sense to all of us? Is anyone struggling with that conversation now? Now, in case you're struggling with that one, now let's take you to another one that may be close to you also. Christians. The Christians believe that Jesus is the Son of God. And that for everything you want to do, you go through Jesus and you can access God directly. And for you to become a Christian, you have to do what? Confess Jesus as your Lord. And also do what they call baptism, which is an immersion by water. These are 3 strong beliefs also for Christians. Is there any other one you guys want to add? Any other one you want to quickly add? Okay. Okay, good. I think we're right up to that point. Now let's build it up onto this point. However, the way you practice Christianity, it's different across different sects also. You have the Pentecostals, you have the Orthodox, you have the, I'm sure you guys understand what I'm trying to say. Does it make sense, guys? First of all, does it make sense to everyone?
Yeah,
Yes, yes.
Cool. Now, if you understand up to that point, then you will never struggle with Agile again. Agile mindset is built on 4 values. 4. And these are the 4 values. However, the way it is practiced is different across different practice. If you don't understand me, go on the chat box, say, I don't understand. That's why when you said, I choose to use on this project, I will be using the word Agile methodology, you also need to tell us what practice of Agile do I want to use? Hello? I don't understand. Maria Perry, I'm going to come back to you now. Cool. Maria, what religion do you know very well?
Christian.
Huh?
Christian.
Okay, you know Christianity very well. Okay, cool. What are the core beliefs of every Christian, no matter what denomination they belong? What are the core beliefs they have?
Believing in Jesus Christ.
Good.
And no, basically that's it. Believing in Jesus
Please
Christ
keep.
and the fact that he's the Son of God.
Okay, good. Now, Maria, up to that point, we agree. However, do they practice their Christianity in the same way? You're leaving me alone now. Do Christians practice their Christianity in the same way?
No.
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 Good. So that's what we're trying to say. You
No.
can
No, they don't.
be running an agile methodology on your project, but your practices
Yeah.
is different from the way OFEC practices his own agile. Does that now make sense to you? There is noise on your background. It could also be affecting the way you're getting us. There is noise on your background. Maybe you need to change
I'm
it.
sorry about it.
Yeah. Now, what I'm trying to draw your attention and draw you into is that there is the practice of faith, of people's faith. It's often different from the core values. It could be the same core values, different practices. Same core values, different practices. Now, the agile mindset is you understanding that there are 4 key things about agile. However, it could be practiced in what different ways. Now, that's why if you've ever been around the world of project management, you might hear someone talk about the fact that we do Scrum in our organization. We're Scrum, we're driven by Scrum. Scrum is a practice of agile. Somebody asked this question in our first class, but I'm not wrong. Was it Luiana, the lady from Brazil? Am I right? Was it Luiana?
Yes.
Yeah, is it making sense to you now? So Scrum, it's only a practice of agile. It's not agile. It's a practice of agile. Likewise, Kanban, it's a practice of agile. Extreme programming is a practice of agile. Lean programming, it's a practice of agile. All of these and more are only but practices of agile. Do you all understand that?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. All right, cool. Now, just before we leave this conversation, what are the 4 core values that whenever you see it in operation, you just know this is an agile environment? Now, whenever you find out that individuals and interactions are priced over processes and tools, what does that really mean? It means that in an environment where people are constantly having conversations and like, let's do it like this. Let's do it like this. Let's move it like this. I think this will be better. That's an agile environment. In an environment where people are more like that's not how we do it. Follow the rules, follow the process. That is not an agile environment. That's a predictive environment. A predictive environment is driven by plan. Guys, get this. While the agile environment is driven by people. Come on, man. If you get it, I don't understand why agile has a fixed time and budget. Luiana, we get there. We'll take your journey gently. Now, follow me up to the point where I am. I won't leave you guys behind. Now, so you get up to that point where I am. If you struggle with where I am, then you can call my attention, but don't worry about the slides. Everything on the slides, I will make you engage with it. Now, the next thing about agile is that, you see, we can all say, oh, let's do it, let's do it like this, let's do it like that. And at the end of the day, we're not producing anything. We're just telling stories. We're not effective, we're not productive. Then we are failures. That's not agile. But if at the end of our collaboration, at the end of our engagements, we are producing working softwares or working products that work, then that's an agile environment. So, like they always say, the end determines the means. So let your end also show that you're working, not just storytelling. So if an environment is saying we're an agile environment, yet they have no results to show for what they're saying, calling themselves agile for, it's just noise. The third thing that makes you know that this is what an agile environment is the strength of customer collaboration. Now, before I explain this part, you need to remember, what was agile built on? It was designed first for softwares. Like, you know, in softwares, people could just walk in today and say, the owner could walk in, or the sponsor could say, let's extend this functionality. Let's improve this feature. Let's add this to this and that to that. Customer collaboration. Are you there? That capacity for the customer to constantly collaborate with you, to get things done or to innovate, is what you call an agile environment. I'm sure you know, if you are going to build a house or send a man to space, customers don't collaborate with us. We tell them how the process will work. That when you're flying on an airline, you don't have customers telling the pilot, imagine being in an airline and you guys are flying across cities, and the next thing you're hearing is someone is telling the pilot, would you mind turning to the left? I want to buy some pizza. Turn to the left, I want to get some Coke. I want to get a drink. What do you think will happen? It doesn't work like that. That's not an agile environment. It's a very predictive environment. Things has to be done as planned. Now, the fourth value of agile is that the ease to respond to change. You and me know that it's not as easy as that to respond to change for a pilot. Or imagine we're flying to space and we're going through SpaceX. We're all on our way to space. And we're all going to SpaceX. That's Elon Musk space vehicle. And then we're like, oh, let's not get to Mars. Let's stop somewhere at Pluto. I want to have dinner there. I'm sure you know what you will get. It's not that easy. You can't respond to change like that. Now, these are the four values. Now, when you see it working in operation, not three of them working, not two of them working, but when you see all four values working in operation together, you know I am in an agile environment. Good. However, don't forget, the way it's practiced may be different. We're going to get into some of the practice. Don't worry, you're going to see them. I'm sure you've already started seeing them already. Now, what is the core difference between the agile environment and the traditional environment? Luihanna was pulling it out of us already. Now, when you look at the screen, what you're going to notice is that some things are fixed and some things are flexible. Okay, Mortars. Guys, let's do it like this. If you want to have a chat or say something, just raise your hand. I'm going to stop for you so that it makes it easier for us, so that I don't have to over-engage with the, I think the same, yeah. Now, Mortars, you are perfectly correct. In a predictive environment, you can actually have change. I'm not saying you cannot have change. No, you can. But that change is not flexible. Does it make sense? Guys, does it make sense? I think I need to put
that makes sense.
I think I need to put my camera on because you guys have left me in class alone. Now,
How is the change not flexible?
yes, you can make change, but the change is not flexible. It has to go through what you call a change control system, the governance board. So, and they have to look at all the constraints first before they approve that change. However, with Agile, you don't really have a change control board, because what? The customer is with you, he's telling you what he wants, and you are flexible to change. You're like, is that what you really want? Okay, that's fine. Let's see. You might talk through it and see are there risks that will come, analyze it, and then just get into it. It's flexible. All right, I hope we're together on that. Now, look at the traditional triangle and look at the word Agile triangle. Guys, don't ever forget, scope, time, and budget are called what? The tripartite triangle. Tripartite triangle, which is a tripartite constraint of project management. Good, let's flow. Now, in traditional, don't forget, you would have gathered. Now, we're going to go again and build the Burj Khalifa. We're building a new one. Imagine that kind of a high-rise building. We're going to build a new one. Let's build a new one in Qatar because we want it to serve the for the World Cup. Before you go ahead and build that kind of building, you would have gathered all the requirements. You don't say, let's just start. No. And then we'll be learning as we go. No. You will spend the time, gather all the requirements. You do the soil testing. You would look at the depth you need to be able to put the foundation or the substructure. You're going to gather all these requirements. Once you gather all of these requirements and it's been approved by the regulators, by the sponsors, you will now start building that building. Make sense to you? Good. Now, that's why scope is largely, I'm using the word now carefully, it's largely fixed. Because it takes a lot to gather those requirements and then put it together. On the contrary, if you were building a software, we use software and Burj Khalifa now and balance them together. So one is agile, one is fixed. Now, on the contrary, if you were building a software, you don't necessarily need to gather all the requirements. What you may do on the contrary is find out what are the key things I may want to get. How can I get myself out there? Initial launch. Then I will build on these gradually. So we want to build Amazon, the app. We don't need to want to do exactly what Amazon does. No. What I would say let's do is, guys, let's be able to create shelves and put prices, and people can check out whatever they want to buy. Basic services first. Then incrementally, we would get up to where Amazon is. We don't need to gather all the requirements. That's why scope in Agile is flexible. On the other hand, time and budget is what? Fixed, is flexible in traditional. It's flexible. It's not entirely flexible, but it's relatively flexible. While in Agile, because the customer can keep asking you to change things, he has to be open to your time and your budget. If you all understand me, go on the chat box. Tell me it's a yes, yes. Oh, thank you. Thank you. All right. I see I have some of the best students, trust me. Sorry, I didn't understand. All right, Luiana, where exactly do you want us to come in? Ask the question now.
Well, I didn't understand how time and budget can be fixed on Agile. For example, for me, scope is flexible,
Mhm.
but I can understand this. But time and budget looks for me also flexible. Like actually, for me, all the Agile management looks flexible for me because, for example, with time, we
Mhm.
have with Scrum, for example. We
Mm.
have we are constantly planning the user stories, for example,
Yeah.
and the budget. We can also have, for example, problems in the middle of the project, and we are changing this budget and time constantly. I'm thinking more about Scrum, that for example, with time, we can get a user story and we are doing this, we are executing. And after that, we planning again, and then planning again. We have
Okay.
more one sprint and planning again until the product is done.
Louisiana,
So that's why I don't understand.
Louisiana, Louis, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah, you are right. But let me just let me shift your brain a bit. Huh? Just follow me now. I'm going to shift your brain a bit. Now, you are constantly planning the user story. But iterations are fixed timed. Yes or no? Each iteration is fixed. Yes or no? So let's build the software myself. Luana, don't go out. Don't go out. Don't off your mic. I want you to, since it's something that you work with and you want to understand it more. We are building the new Amazon. We wanted the new Amazon to serve the continent of Asia. So it's our company now. So let's go there, all of us. The very first thing we're going to agree is, when are we launching the first part of this product? When are we launching it? So class, when do we launch? You guys should tell me. When do we launch? Hello, come on guys.
We launch in 2 weeks. 2 weeks.
2 weeks. Benjamin says we need it in 2 weeks. So today it's the 14th. By the 28th, guys,
Amazon?
by the 28th of this month, we have to launch this product. Our project manager is Louisiana. We've appointed her. Louisiana, even while we are coming to be, we're constantly talking to you about what we need to be on that stuff. Do you somehow see that you have a fixed time? Where is she? Did she run away? Yes. So in this time now, yes, you have to look at it in terms of the sprint time and sprint budget. Does that make sense, Rihanna? Does it make sense for everyone? That's why it's actually said to be fixed, because in every iteration is fixed, both in time and in what cost. Go ahead, tell us, Rihanna, come in.
If we are talking about sprint time, yes, I can understand it's only at the maximum 4 weeks, a minimum 2 weeks.
Yeah.
But when we are talking about this, I think in this way, traditional management is also flexible. It's also fixed, sorry, because we have, for example, today we are going to do this and tomorrow this. So for me, traditional model looks more fixed everything than the Agile model. For me, Agile looks like almost everything flexible.
Louisiana, you are not wrong at all. Don't get me wrong. You are not wrong at all. However, let me tell you why you need to appreciate why the masters of the profession came up with this diagram. Imagine, guys, imagine that we are building Burj Khalifa. Again, and this time around, we want to site it in Qatar, like we said. There is a purpose for that building. And the purpose is for the World Cup. Let's even leave Burj Khalifa alone. let's all go on a journey to space. You and me know that time is not, it can be flexible. Yeah. However, the process, the scope of what will be done will never be flexible. Never be flexible. Think about it, be a bit relaxed in your thinking about the context now. Same thing with Agile. Time and budget might be flexible in every sprint. However, scope, time and budget is always fixed in every sprint, but scope is always a bit more flexible. If we had the time, we would bring this on. In traditional, scope is largely fixed. And you know why scope is largely fixed? Because they don't really want changes. However, time and budget is, like I said, a bit flexible. It's not an extreme case, it's just a bit. All right, let's not hang in there for a long time. We can actually come have a personal conversation later on about this. Okay, Ofek says he has a question. Let's see your question. I know this can be a bit here and there. Please don't write long texts, it's harder to read. I'm trying to process the writings on the screen and also your writing. So just talk, come in and talk. Ofek, ask your question before we move on.
Is suggested to use the agile mindset or the mindset choosing depend on the project requirements?
Is it suggested to use agile methodology in what?
Overall, in general.
In general, no. You would see where you can use, we're going to touch on that today, so not to worry. You've also gone ahead of us. Okay, so we're back. Today we're talking about planning, but I wanted to just touch on Agile a bit so that as we begin to talk, you will not start struggling early. Now, if that diagram I showed you guys disturbs you and you're not able to fully process it, pull it out. I will do a video on this alone and then share it with you guys after the training, just on these reasons alone with examples. Okay. Now, rolling wave planning. What is rolling wave planning? Okay, good. The best way I like to explain this for you is to explain it based on you earning an income. Every one of you, most times you have a diary. You have a diary. And in your diary, you've written, what do you call it? A long list of everything you need, you want, and you desire. You see the way I broke them down? Your diary often has everything you need, everything you want, and everything you desire, even the places you want to go. And then perhaps you're earning a salary or you're earning an income, perhaps a business that pays you. It could pay you a month, it can pay you in a week, it can pay you in a year, however it works for you. Good. Immediately your funds come. What do? You go into what? You can bring out your diary and look at what exactly from this diary can I do? Can I fulfill with the income I have? Make sense to you? What exactly from these income can I fulfill with the income I have? Now, what are you doing? You are planning what can be done in the near term without necessarily trying to bother too much about what cannot be done in the near term. Now, whenever you plan in details what can be done in the near term, while you plan at a high level what you cannot do right now, what you are doing there is called rolling wave planning. I hope that makes sense. So you're planning with your income what you can do now. However, you just put a value to the ones you cannot do. So at a high level, you're planning them by just putting a value on them. What you are doing there is a simple rolling wave planning. These kind of planning are often iterative. The word iterative means repetitive, because as your next source of funds come, you will go back and do the same thing. As your next source of funds come, you will go back and do the same thing. So iterative means repetitive. Good. It's not only based on resources like money that makes you plan in this manner. Sometimes a lack of knowledge makes you plan in that manner. I'll give you an example. I'm taking a trip right now to Norway. And I can't overbother about what's going to be happening in Norway. That's not what I want to bother about. I just have an idea that when I get there, I will need a bed and breakfast. And because I've been to Sweden before, I just want to think that everything around Norway will be like Sweden. So at a high level, I'm just going to budget like $3,000 for that journey. However, I'm going to spend time now planning about things I am worried about now, but I'll just save $3,000. I'll just say, by next 2 to 3 months, I'll just take $3,000 and I'll go to Norway. At a high level, I'm planning that. But in details, I am trying to resolve the things that bother me now. Does that make sense? Does that make sense? Guys, does that make sense? I need to be sure you're all fine.
Yes.
Perfect.
Yeah,
Cool. I'm happy about that. Guys, please engage with me. It doesn't make sense for Deborah. I'm going to repeat this. Deborah, what's your long-term goal? What's your long-term plan? Shehab, I'll take yours now after now. Deborah, what's your long-term plan? Okay, she's gone hiding. When you ask questions, I expect you to be ready to engage so that I can help you. Now, for those who did not understand, I'll give you one more explanation. So I'm a high school student. I'm a high school student. I don't have an idea. At a high level, I know I need to read and work hard when I get to the uni. So I don't overplan that one. I just leave it. But I know that I need to work hard. But right now, what I need to do is to give everything I have into getting the best grades to see if I can secure a scholarship when I get to the uni. Now, planning for now, while I'm in high school, in details. While planning for the future at a high level, I know when I get there, I want to study geology, the study of rocks. At a high level, I know at a high level, that's what I'm going to be doing. I know at a high level, I'm looking at studying in Tuskegee. At a high level. But right now, what I need to do is to study to get a high grade. So I plan for the now while planning at a high level in the future. That's rolling wave planning. It's also called progressive elaboration. All right, Shehab, I'll take your question.
So rolling wave planning is level by level planning. Am I right?
Shehab, you're not wrong, but I wouldn't call it level by level. Maybe call it, think about rolling wave. You know wave now? Wave in the sea, yeah. So the one that is closer to you might be higher, then it keeps dropping, then it keeps dropping. So as it's going, it looks like it's a descending step. So say near-term, long-term planning. That would make more sense. Near-term, long-term planning.
Okay, I get it. Thank you.
Near-term in details, long-term at a high level. All right, cool. Now the other name for rolling wave is also called what? Progressive elaboration. Even with the names, it should make more sense now. Progressive, I elaborate as I go on progressively. All right, cool. If I'm not planning, and see, rolling wave and progressive elaboration are good ways we plan in Agile. So in Agile, you plan based on the iteration. So at a high level, you can plan the other things, but here we plan in details. Now, if I'm not planning in Agile, what should I be planning in? I should be planning in a predictive way. And when I'm planning in a predictive way, I am going to be what? All encompassing. So I'm going to be planning across 1, stakeholders, 2, risk, 3, schedules, 4, budgets, 5, quality standards, 6, deliverables, and then 7, the final project output. So you are doing a very all-encompassing planning. The other thing you need to also know that when you are planning a big project, you also plan what you call transitioning. A very good one is, if you're following the Qatar Stadium, they're building for the World Cup, coming in, I think, later this year. You're going to realize, is it later this year, later next, or early next year? Now, you would realize something. From time to time, they take the media houses into the stadiums to look at, to cover it and make news about it. What they are doing is transitioning that you don't appreciate. They're trying to show you how things work in that place. And when the contingent finally gets there, they're going to take someone around and show them around the stadium. There is a reason for it, so that you get yourself acquainted with the stadium. And in a case of eventuality, you know how to do it. I hope that makes sense for everyone. So you plan also to encompass transitioning. All right. Now, let's keep going. So iterative, agile, and now we're going to see this again. All right, look at this, guys. This should make sense for all of you. In a waterfall methodology, at the end of the project, you will have one big achievement, like the Burj Khalifa that we're building in Qatar. One big achievement. However, in the Agile methodology, you can have a number of achievements in an incremental way. The benefit with the Agile methodology is that you can start smiling early. All right. One of the most common types of Agile you often hear everywhere you go. Can you see my screen, guys? Hello?
Yes.
Yeah.
All right, cool.
Yeah.
Can see your screen.
Okay, I'm not sure if I'm on the right slide on my screen, but okay. Now, one of the most common Agile methodologies that you keep hearing around the place, most common practice of Agile, I use the words correctly now, it's called the Scrum. You see this diagram down here? That's a good example of what the Scrum looks like. There is a backlog which is all the things that comes to our hearts that we want to do. When we are about to start doing the things that are in our heart, we go into what? A sprint planning, this place. What happens in the sprint planning? During the sprint planning, we are looking at what among these whole ideas can we take forward? Can we first implement? Guys, follow me here now. So we can have like 20 things in the product backlog, 20 ideas, things we believe that if we launch, the customer will be so elated. However, when we got into the sprint planning, we realized we have a constraint when it comes to our resources. Did you get that now? Another reason why funds and budget can be fixed. We have a constraint with our resources. Besides, the stakeholders want to be able to see an immediate launch that they can begin to engage with it. So what do? We ask ourselves, among this long list of things we want to do, which of these things which 3 or 5 can we achieve in the first sprint? Doesn't have to be much, but which 3 or 5 can we achieve in the first sprint? It could be more than 5. It's just for narration now. When we begin to discuss in this planning, it's like a meeting. It's a planning meeting, it's a meeting. A lot of meetings go in there. Once we have been able to identify 5 things, for instance, those 5 things is what will become our sprint backlog. The sprint backlog, guys, is a subset of the product backlog. Now, once we got the sprint backlog correctly, we are now going to tell ourselves within the next 1 to 3 weeks, 1 to 3 weeks, 1 to 2 weeks, or 1 to 4 weeks. It shouldn't be more than 4 weeks, guys. A good sprint is 2 weeks. Within the next 1 to 3 weeks, we are going to make sure that we get the job done. The things we have identified, we want to get it done within the next 1 to 3 weeks. Once we have said that and established that context, we get to work in 3 weeks. You see, that's the loop means we're working for those 3 weeks. That's a sprint. Now, right now, myself and all of you, we've been in a sprint, and this sprint will cost us 1 month. However, while we are having this sprint, every day when we come to work, I'm going to ask every one of you, Ayman, how are you? What did you do yesterday? What have you done? What are you doing today? And do you have any problems? 3 questions I will ask you. Ayman, what did you do yesterday? Ayman, what have you done? What are you doing today? And Ayman, do you have any problem at all? 3 questions. I'm going to repeat the same question for every one of you to see if you have challenges. Good. That meeting we hold every day to check in with each other, it's also called a daily scrum. Daily scrum. After the 3 weeks, it is expected, guys, that you have what you call a potentially shippable product or a product ready Don't forget, one of the values of Agile is a working product, working product. So at the end of these 3 weeks, we should have a working product that is ready. Good. And after we've shipped the product to the market, all of us, we should sit back again and do what is called a sprint review or retrospection. What is a sprint review or retrospection? Just by the name. Retrospection is us looking back. What we did we do it well? If we did not do it well, what can we do better? What do you think that the market is asking for that we did not do this period? Can we step up next time? Okay, that's retrospection. Does that make sense? Perfect, ask me.
The picture on the bottom, it is belong to the predictive or to the agile?
The picture at the bottom is what I've been explaining since. That is a Scrum. Scrum is one of the practices of Agile.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, the picture on the right-hand side, it's predictive. The right-hand side. I will then write those things before I send them out. Aishan, please ask.
Yes, is the sprint like the reciprocation step or what? I don't get it.
No, say that again.
I said, is the sprint step like the reciprocation step, or is it's not?
What do
It's
you mean when
something
you
different.
use the word reciprocation?
No, what was it we used yesterday? I can't remember the word.
Retrospective?
Retrospective, I think. No, was it? No, like going back.
Going back is retrospective. Now look at it here. Look at it here. The sprint is not retrospection. Look at retrospection here. At the end of the shipping of the product, we will now sit together in a meeting and retrospect. Means looking back.
I've seen it.
Yeah, looking back. Guys, before I walk past this slide, I must remind you that there are 3 ceremonies in Agile. Yesterday, I said that when we get into today, I will come back to those conversations. There are 3 ceremonies of Agile. The very first ceremony is the sprint planning. Can you see it? Where we have a meeting and we ask ourselves, what are we going to do this sprint? The second ceremony is the daily Scrum, where we check in with team members to find out, what did you do yesterday? What are you doing today? And do you have any problems? The last ceremony of Agile, it's here. And it's where we talk about what? Sprint review or retrospection. Do you all understand me before I drive past this place? Give me a yes if you understand everything.
Yeah, we understand.
Yes, everything's clear.
Good. Awesome. Let's keep going. Before I continue, it's important to note, guys, look at the screen again. See if you can see where my cursor is. Let me know if you can see my cursor. Can you see where the mouse is on my screen?
Yes, we can see it.
Good.
Yes, we can.
Awesome.
Yes.
In an Agile project, the very first launch, the very first word, launch, is called the word minimum viable product. Minimum viable product. Minimum viable product, MVP. Write it on your diary. Write it on your diary. Now, why is it called the minimum viable product? It means that it is at that level, that's the minimum we consider we can ship into the market and the market will buy, or the market will respond to us favorably. Awesome. Now, the difference between this one, the second one, and the first one, which is the MVP, the difference in terms of functions and features between this one and this one, between the second and the first, between the third and the second, and between the fourth and the third, the differences between each increment is called a minimum business increment. Minimum business increment, MBI. Please write it down. Why is it called an MVP and an MBI? It is called an MBI because it's considered the minimum I can add, the minimum I must increment before I can sell. Minimum business increment. All right. So I believe we're fine. Everyone is lovely. We keep going. The question I think Ofek was trying to ask earlier, Jean, are you still in this class? I mean, you've left us. We've not heard you.
Yeah, I'm here.
Awesome.
I'm here.
You all right?
Yeah, I'm just a bit sick, so I'm coughing a lot, so I'm keeping myself muted.
Oh, cool. That's fine. All right, cool. I just want to be sure that everyone is with us. So I'll call your names when I don't hear your voice. Hiba, have you been here for 2 days? No, we've not seen you, heard you, or spoken to you. Hiba, how are you? All right, I'm sure she's not yet there yet. All right, when she gets to us, let's keep going. Now, next thing is, someone was trying to ask earlier, and the person said, methodology. He said, when do we use, I think it was Ofek asking us that question. When do we use what? The Agile? When do we use Predictive? When do we use Iterative? When do we use these and when do we use that? Good. Agiles are more suited for software projects. They're also well suited for what? Intellectual property projects. Like you're writing a book. It's flexible to use Agile. The third one is for research projects. So if you're working on any of these kind of projects, then the Agile methodology will suit you very much. Awesome. When can I use predictive? Construction. Projects with many physical assets. Like going to space, it's a lot of assets from the control board to the spacecraft itself. That's a lot. Repeats of similar completed projects like flying or air commute. It's just a repeat of a similar project. That's predictive. That's plan driven. It has to follow a plan. Now, when can I go with just purely? Now, it's interesting that you have to know. Before I talk about iterative and incremental, I'll stop and go to hybrid. When can I use hybrid? Hybrid, it also is good when you have what? A mix of resources and experience levels. And also those who are seeking to learn, those seeking or willing to learn new methods or techniques. When you're seeking to learn a new method or technique, you don't want to completely leave one side alone. So you want to just have that balance between two worlds. It's also a good place to use it. Now, before I come into iterative and incremental, it's explained that I make you understand that the Agile methodology, which is also called adaptive methodology, it's both iterative and incremental. So it's called iterative plus incremental. And I hope you understand that already. If you don't, a good way to explain it to you is this place. If you watch in Agile, we created what? Incremental products. So that's incremental. And iterative means that after we finish this sprint, we will go back again. One more time. We keep going over and over. You know, that's why Louis Hannah said that it's not fixed. Time is not fixed. Yeah, which she's perfectly also correct, because they keep going back over again to get more increments and more increments. All right. Any questions so far? Else, I'm going to move straight down here. Okay. I wouldn't want us to spend so much time here because everything here, we've already touched on them. Now, this is what I was trying to explain to you. I said, Agile is also called adaptive because it's what? Incremental, and it's also what? Iterative. Iterative means repetitive. Repetitive. Single delivery, just repetitive. For instance, a good way of explaining repetitive is when you are doing a research work. Maybe if you watch those who are doing a research paper and they have a supervisor, you keep writing and going back to him, he corrects, you come back and rewrite. That's very iterative. All right. Any question, guys? I know it's a lot in those few slides, but any question? All clear. What language is that? NOPG. Interesting. Maya, what language is that? NOPG.
That G was a typo. I went to write nope.
Oh, that's Thai.
I have a question.
Yes, it's from Turkish. It's a Turkish letter.
Turkish. Okay, that's cool. Please, who said so? Go ahead, ask.
Is it possible to have a project where you use both agile or incremental or iterative processes and also waterfall processes?
Uma, yes. Yes and no. Yes, because when you're using Agile, now Agile is iterative plus incremental. Does that make sense to you?
Yes.
Uma, does it make sense?
Yes, that makes sense.
Good. Now, so when you're using Agile, you're already using iterative and incremental together. Now, you now go to the next step of it. You want to now add predictive plus Agile. Yes, you can have a project like that. And that's what you call hybrid. When you combine Agile and predictive, you have hybrid. Now, what is a good example of when you could have hybrid? Let's use something like a car production. Now, I don't know if you know that there are some companies that do what you call bespoke cars on request, though. Now, those cars are naturally what? Predictive. They follow a process. Are you getting me? However, they could work with you in a way that you could have a contract with them and say, come, I want to produce a bespoke car. So they're constantly listening to you and collaborating with you, but there is a process that they will follow. So they cannot just start putting, they won't put the upholsteries. Upholsteries means the seats and all those internal finishings without creating a body and putting the wheels. No, they won't do that. They will still create the body. Then they will ask you, what exactly do you want in the body? You will tell them, there is noise in someone's background. Guys, let's manage the noise in our background. Hello, Isan, can you mute yourself? Good, thank you. Now, because you're running and you are the one who wants the car, they would ask you, so what would you like about, we finished the body. What exactly would you want about the body? You'd say, oh, I would want it to be what? Bulletproof, because of the kind of commute I make. So they will make the body bulletproof. And then they will ask you to come and inspect. So there is already a plan, but they're also taking on customer collaboration on it. Does that make sense to you, Uma? That's a very hybrid system. Uma, still with us?
Yes, that makes sense. Yeah, I'm with you.
All right, let's keep going, guys. Knowledge management areas. Now, at your time, look at these 10 areas. These are the 10 knowledge areas. We're going to talk through literally all of them in the course of today and Saturday's training. So let's keep moving. For today, we'll start with talking about scope. But before we go into scope planning, let me give you what I call the universal toolkit in planning. Another interesting area. It could be all over the place, but just pay attention, you get it very simple. I call it the universal toolkits of planning. What do I mean by universal toolkits of planning? I mean two things that you must be aware of, because they will always matter if you are planning a project. Two things. The very first of them is what we call the EEFs. EEFs. And the second of them is what you call the OPAs. What is the EEFs? It's called the Enterprise Environmental Factor. There is noise on your background, Monjo. All right. Now, what are EEFs? These are conditions that things that are not under the control of your project team. Things that are not under the control of the project team, but they can influence, they can constrain, and or direct the project. Now, let me give you a very good example of an EEF. A condition, it could be external, it could be internal, but let's go with an external one that every one of us can relate with. The pandemic. The pandemic. When the pandemic happened, something happened almost immediately. And what happened almost immediately? Many projects across the world were affected. Did you see? An external condition had influence, was able to constrain and even redirect projects. That's an external condition. Likewise, there could be an internal condition. Guys, I don't know if I shared this with you, your team, but do you realize, are you aware that one of the first companies to discover digital photography was Kodak itself? Even though they were one of the first to discover digital photography in their lab, they made no effort to harness the power of digital photography. And because they made no effort to harness the power of digital photography, they became what? They went down. Other companies went and grew past them. Those who embraced it grew past them. What is the internal condition in Kodak, or what was the internal condition in Kodak? The internal condition in Kodak as at that time may have been what? Resistance to change. Did you get this thing now? They were resistant to change. Good. Having spoken about EEFs, you need to be aware of all the EEFs that will trouble you as a PM. Having spoken about that, the next thing you need to be aware of are what we call the OPAs, Organizational Process Assets. These are what processes, bureaucracies, that's the way I would like to call them, bureaucratic. You know, some organizations are very bureaucratic. Processes, long processes, policies, procedures, and even knowledge base used by a particular organization that can actually become what? An influence on the project. Now, I'll give you an insight. I'll give you an insight. I was thinking, something came to mind and just jumped out immediately. Now, think about this. Think about the airline industry. Now, there was a time the airline, I think it was Airbus, I'm not sure now. My mind is not getting it right now. Now, one of the airline manufacturers, you know that there are just two of them until the Chinese one started up. There were just two, the European company and the American airline company. So the American airline company in the last 4 or 6 years had issues. Their planes were having their planes were crashing for a very little problem that they did not correct when they were manufacturing. Now, let's say that they have a very hierarchical system where if I notice a problem, I must tell Lita, then Lita will now tell Asala. Asala will now tell Aziz, then Aziz will now tell Ashra, then Ashra will now go and tell Benjamin. Benjamin will now decide and now send the feedback through Camilla. Did you see that hierarchy? Before the thing finally gets approval, we've already finished producing that plane. And then people are already dying in the plane. Now, that process can affect a project. Guys, does that make sense? Does that make sense, guys?
Yes.
Good.
Yes.
These are not external things. These are very internal processes that can create problems. Sometimes you don't need to think too far about project management. Think about even the home that you grew up. What were the external things that was affecting your home? And what were the internal things that were affecting your home? EFs, OPAs. All right, let's keep going. Oh, let's see, where are we? Let's see, who wants to read for us? EFs that are internal and the one that are external. Who wants to read for us? Any volunteers? Come on, someone volunteer. Manuel, go ahead, read for us. All right, Emmanuel or Shahab, anyone who is available, read for us.
Internal to the organization, organizational culture, structure, and governance, geographic distribution of facilities and resources, infrastructure, information technology software, resource availability, employee capability. Even the external, external of the organization, social and cultural influences and issues, legal restrictions, commercial databases, academic research, government or industry standards, financial considerations, physical, environmental elements.
All right. Thank you very much, Emmanuel. So guys, I hope you guys were able to look and see some of the internal EEFs and some of the external EEFs. Does it now make sense to you how these things can affect a project? Does anyone have any doubt or want to ask a question? Guys, I'm waiting for your feedback. Is there anything here you would want us to talk about for you to grab? Beautiful. All right, cool. Understood by Abe. Thank you, Asala. All right, that's fine. No, all clear. Yeah. All right, let's keep going. OPAs. Now, organizational process assets are, we've already touched on most of these things. So now let's keep going. So everything here that we've discussed about processes, procedures, policies. All right, let's go. Now we're going to move swiftly into what? Scope planning. Scope planning. We've been able to spend time to see the very first part, which was what? Deciding on our methodology. And then we've picked up two toolkits we need to carry along because we will need it all through our planning. Those things, the EAFs and the OPA would affect every part of your planning, from scope planning to closing. So let's get into today's work. Scope. So what is scope? Now, in every project, let's say we're building, let's choose a project right now. Let's go back to building Burj Khalifa in Qatar for the World Cup. There is a project of building Burj Khalifa. And there is a product at the end of that project, which is what? The building itself, Burj Khalifa. So it's a two-pronged thing there. One is the project of building Burj Khalifa, and the other one is what? The Burj Khalifa itself, which is the product. Let's start by asking, what does a scope, product scope mean? The features and functions that characterizes a product, a service, or result. So what are the features and what are the functions that will characterize what? The product, Burj Khalifa. One of the features and one of the functions that will characterize that product is that it's going to be a 100-floor building. Does that make sense? And that's one of the features. The function will also be the fact that besides being a 100-floor building, it's going to support 7,000 rooms. Features and functions. So the product scope describes what? The features and the functions. Look at the iPhone. What are the features of the iPhone? And what are the functions of the iPhone? When you put those two things together, you have what you call the product scope. Now, what is the project scope? Now, this is where it gets interesting more. The project scope is the work that will be performed to deliver what? That product scope. So what is the work we are going to put in to build Burj Khalifa in Qatar? So you have a product scope and you have a project scope. Whatever you're doing in the project is to be able to meet the scope requirements of the product. Now, when you are looking at the processes in scope planning and management, the very first processes, you know, we said earlier that there are 49 processes in project management. As I introduce you to every knowledge area, I'm also going to be what? introducing you to the word, the processes tied to all of them. Now, scope has 6 processes tied to them. The very first one is you plan the scope, then you collect requirements. We're going to do all of that. You define the scope, create the WBS, validate the scope, then you control the scope. We're going to do all of that in today's class. Let's go on a ride. All right. You've seen this already: product scope, project scope, work performed to deliver. One is called the features and the functions. So that's fine. Let's keep going. The scope management plan. Now, the very first thing you need to take away, one more time, I think we opened it in our last class yesterday, but one more time you need to remember that the plan book is like a big book of faith. And like a big book of faith, did we talk about that in our last class? Did we? I need to be sure what I'm saying.
No, I don't think so.
Oh, all right, cool. Let me open it up now. Now, again, I like to use faith to explain this part of project management again. In every faith, whether you are Hindu, you are Muslim, you're Christian, or you are whatever faith you belong to, there is always a book attached to it, which kind of captures the tenets of that faith. Guys, please listen to me closely now. Now, that book is called what? The Project Management Plan. It's a big book. So it defines all the plans about that project, how everything will be done in that project. Again, like I said, it's a big book. And like in every other religious book, they always have smaller books. So it's a big book. Every other religious book is something like a big book with other small books in it. Good. So in this our big book for today, there's going to be a big book called what? The Project Management Plan. But inside that big book, there will be smaller books in it. Now, even inside those books that are going to be there are going to be a number of books that will make up that big book. There are 3 of those books that are called baselines. Baselines. And those 3 that are called baselines are the scope plan, the cost plan, and the schedule plan. Again, the tripartite constraint of project management. Good. Now let's get into the scope plan for today. It's said to be a component of the project or program management plan that describes how the scope will be identified, developed, monitored, controlled, and validated. Don't go into all the grammars. What is this book all about? It tells us how are we going to collect and identify scope? How are we going to develop it? How are we going to control it so make sure that we get the job done? Now, this scope management plan is what guides us in going about identifying scope. It's a very detailed book and will help you all through your journey. I wouldn't read the text here, but I'm going to talk about them gradually. The first thing that plan will help us do is tell us how are we going to identify scope. And which method should we use? There are a number of techniques when you want to identify scope, a number of techniques. But let me tell you a very simple one. A few of them I have captured here for you. The first of them is called what? Expert knowledge. You cannot run away from experts. Now, again, we're building Burj Khalifa in Qatar. To be fair, I wouldn't waste my time trying to reinvent the wheel. What I would do is to look for the company that built Burj Khalifa in Dubai and invite them and say, sir, can you come a bit closer? Come and advise me what I need to know if I want to pursue this project. What am I doing? Expert knowledge. If you get enough of expert knowledge, you would avoid many mistakes and you will excel faster than they did. That's one way you identify scope. What do you want me to know? What would you like me to know before I undertake this journey? The next thing is what you call alternative analysis. Alternative analysis. Think about this in a very simple way. You want to buy a car. You're wondering, should I do a BMW or should I buy a Mercedes? You begin to check based on what I want to use it to do. What are the price points? What are the functionalities? What is the aesthetics? What is the warranty? You're thinking around a number of subjects. So you're thinking around alternatives. Now, these are what you call alternative analysis. The next one is meetings. Meetings are meetings for all you care. It's like myself sitting down with you and we begin to have conversations and say, come, everyone, what should we do? What should we do? What should we be looking out for? Where do we go? How do we do it? Meetings, we're engaging. The fourth of them is what? Document analysis. Document analysis. Now, one way you could do this is you can pick a book, perhaps a book that have been written about the Taj Mahal, what do you call it? Burj Khalifa, the building of Burj Khalifa in Dubai. You can pick a book, read about it. What you are doing there is what? Document analysis. You're studying up the previous document and using that to frame your mind about what should be done and what should not be done. Focused groups. Another way to get insight is to get them from focus groups. What are focus groups? For instance, you can call people who are into the green world. You know what a green world is? People are ethical people. Hello, does anyone not know what the green world is? Ethical, the ethical companies that are big on ethics. Does anyone not know what it means? All right, so you speak to them about how can I make the construction of Taj Mahal, I'm keep saying Taj Mahal, Burj Khalifa, how can I make it very green? You can also speak to what? Committee of engineers, focus groups. The next one you can do is to use questionnaires and surveys. The use of questionnaires and surveys. So I can send the questionnaire to you guys and ask you guys, if you've ever been in Burj Khalifa, what did you like about it? What would you like changed or done better? I will take that insight and use it to develop what I'm doing. Benchmarking. You are benchmarking against something. Okay, a similar project was done, you just benchmark it. That's how you build scope. Interviews. Storyboarding. What's storyboarding? Storyboarding is when you put a story on a board. I don't know if you've ever seen a storyboard. Anyone who has not seen a storyboard before? Guys, are you guys still in class?
Yes, we are.
Yes,
we are in class.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, a storyboard Okay, for today's class, I won't send you a storyboard. I'll send a storyboard on WhatsApp after the class so that you see what a storyboard looks like. It helps people to engage with what you're talking about. It's similar to a prototype, but it's not a prototype. I'll send it to you on WhatsApp. You see what it looks like. A prototype is when, like you see this a lot with architects. They create a prototype and then they make you see what the building will come to, the whole landscaping will be like. And then thereafter, you can buy into it or reject it, or ask for some corrections. The last way you build scope is what you call product analysis. Let me give you a very simple example of product analysis. If I were to build a soda company, what I would do is to buy all the sodas that I love or people around me love. Pepsi, Coke, and all the colas, bring them and begin to analyze that product. What is it about this product that makes people want to buy them more? Then I would use those insights to build my own next big thing. That's product analysis. These are techniques people use to identify scope. Does that make sense? Does it make sense, everyone? Yes. All right, I'll give you guys, I know there's been a lot of knowledge today. I'll give you guys 3 minutes to catch a breath, get a cup of tea, and then we'll be back in 3 minutes on the dot. Is that fine?
Yeah, that's very fine.
Okay.
What is the product and the project requirement? Now, when a project is given to you, there are requirements you are required to meet. That's tautology, is it? When you use the same word to explain the same word. There are things you are required to meet. Those things you are required to meet, call it objectives, you're required to meet, are called requirements. There are requirements for the project and there are requirements for the product. Now, what is it called? The agreed upon conditions or capabilities of a product, service, or outcome that the project is designed to satisfy. Those are called product requirements. Same thing also, the agreed upon actions, processes, or conditions that the project itself needs to meet are called project requirements. And one of these requirements for projects could be things like milestones. So by this date, we need to see this, milestones. Another one you could be asking, what other examples of requirements can we bring to? You hear things about inclusivity. In some projects, they will tell you, we want to see a broad range of inclusivity, meaning that you should bring people from different religions, people from different tribes, people of different colors on the project. They want to have a very deep level of inclusivity. Now, most times at a very high level, the project requirements are often captured in the project charter. So the sponsor will tell you as the project manager, the requirements, the things they require of you. Now, these requirements often they first provide the foundation for you to know what the scope of work it's all about. It's also important that you know that requirements in the project could actually be what? Functional or non-functional. Let me explain this for you to understand. I'm sure you know that there are cars that are actually that provide massage services on them. As you're driving them, you're also being massaged. Are you aware about that?
Yes.
Awesome. Thanks, Lita. Now, that's a non-functional requirement for a car. A functional requirement for a car, it's pretty simple. Is that the car should be able to take you from one place to another. So you have functional requirements and you have non-functional requirements. Now, I'll give you another one. I'm sure you know that there are wristwatches that if you get into that are gold-plated, let's use that simple one, are gold-plated. That's very non-functional. The function of a wristwatch is basic. Tell us the time. Now, in projects, it's not in your place to go and tell the sponsor, hey, sponsor, your project, you're bringing a lot of non-functional requirements. No, what you need to do is aggregate, find out what are the requirements, whether they be functional or whether they be non-functional. You have to fulfill all of them. It's your work. That all put together defines the scope. Now, the requirements could include things like availability, how and when the service will be available. Requirements could include things like what availability still, if the service were to become unavailable, how quickly can it be restored or made to work? If you are into IT support, you will appreciate that particular side. So I'm going to be supporting your company's IT service. If your service becomes unavailable, I'm going to give you what they call an SLA. Within the next 3 hours, I will ensure your services works again. What level of what service performance, speed, and throughput is required? Given the number of stakeholders using the service, is there enough supply to meet demand? Let's look at softwares again here. Capacity. Are you aware that there are some sites that if 10,000 people are using it at a time, it will break down? Now, do you have, does the site provide for what 10,000 people using it per time at the same time? Capacity. So these are what functional and non-functional requirements. You need to just, so when you're collecting scope, when you're asking questions, you must try to identify what are the functional requirements here and what are the non-functional requirements here. All right. There are a lot of them, so let's keep going. Now, in planning scope, you also need to find out about what you call tolerance limits. Okay, now let me give you an example. If you were managing a big farm, maybe you were managing a big pork farm, that's a pig farm, and then in the pig farm you were managing, maybe somewhere in the countryside, you're managing a big pig farm, and then one of the pigs dies. For whatever reason it dies. You may not need to report that to the owner. Why? Because he is aware that from time to time, we could lose a pig. But if 2 or 3 dies, that's tolerance limits, the limit of tolerance before you escalate an issue. Immediately it gets to 3, you need to call the owner. Perhaps there is a disease or something disturbing the pigs in the house. So that's what you call a tolerance level. It enables you to what? Manage issues without needing to escalate it. So you also, while you are planning, you must pay attention and ask questions around what is the tolerance limit around this project? What are the areas you will need to pay attention to tolerance? Budget. If the budget exceeds $12 million, if I find out that it exceeds, my budget is beginning to exceed $12 million, I need to shout because the company does not have enough money, more money to invest in that project beyond that limit. Schedule. I notice I'm getting behind time. I need to also shout, and then quality. All right, so as you're collecting requirements, you're also asking, what is the quality requirements? You collect that during scope 2. And you're also finding out, are there tolerance limits involved in any of these things? Find out if there are tolerance limits. Now let's keep going. When you've gathered requirements, whether functional or non-functional requirements, you need to document those requirements. The question is, how do I document requirements? You could document requirements in a very simple structure like this, like what we've captured here. One of them is what? What is the business requirement? What are the stakeholders' requirements? What are the transition and readiness requirements? What are the quality requirements? What are the project requirements? What are functional and non-functional requirements? So you're capturing it in a way that gives you what? You can use it to what? Make sense of what you're doing. So that's exactly how you could capture requirements. All right, we've talked through this part. Now, good. Mortars, please ask. Mortars, please ask. Put on your mic, ask. Mortars, are you asking? Should we continue? Okay, I'm not sure he's here with us. His hands have been raised for a while. Now, once you've gathered and documented requirements, it's also expedient that you understand that you have to design a requirement management plan for the requirements. Now, let's plan a very simple requirement, a very simple project. Can we all travel and spend some time in Malaysia? We're going for a 1-week holiday in Malaysia, every one of us. The requirement is that our holiday starts on Monday next week. So we all need to be there by Sunday, requirement number 1. Requirement number 2 is that we need to ensure that everybody books their hotel by tomorrow. Now, I'm going to be documenting this, and there is a management plan for it. So the management plan says that by this week, it says by this weekend, everyone needs to what? Pay for their hotel accommodation. That's the management plan now. So we've got a requirement, we're building a management plan around it. By the upper weekend on Monday, everyone needs to arrive in Malaysia. Preferably, you should arrange to make sure that your flight gets into Malaysia by 2 p.m. Malaysian time. Because we've already booked a bus that will take every one of us from the airport to our various to our hotel, and that bus will be leaving by what? 3.5 hours in the afternoon PM. Now you see how we're managing the requirements. We've also asked that everyone should what? We've sent a checklist to all of you, showing the kind of clothing you should carry. You see, we know the requirements. We're now creating a management plan, how we will manage to ensure that everything we want to achieve is achieved. So we define the clothing we will need you to wear, and then we send it to every one of you. So you will sign off that you've carried all your clothing, the things you would need, so that when you come in there, you are not stranded. You have everything ready to enjoy the holidays. That's defining a requirement management plan. Does that make sense to everyone?
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Now, one of the things you can take away from this class is that project management is a very detailed, oriented profession. You know what you want, you begin to plan on how you will get them, and you make other people what sign up to get the results you want to get. Now, another interesting subject is what we call the what? Requirement traceability matrix. Now, still with our holiday project, one of the things we want to achieve is that every one of us will be carried by the bus from the airport to what? Our hotel. Now, for that to happen, there are processes that we need to work out. We need to ensure that we follow up with every one of you on how you will book your what? Flight. So we're going to try to what? Follow up with all of you to make sure that your flight will land between 12 noon, or call it 3 to 4 hours. So between 11 in the morning to what? 3 in the afternoon. So we believe that if you get in by 11, you can wait for the rest. Now, all the processes, now follow this again, all the processes that will help us to achieve everybody getting into Malaysia about the same time, all the processes that we need to put a finger on to ensure that we get that particular requirement of everybody leaving the airport at the same time to the hotel, all the processes, tracing all those processes and managing them is called a requirement traceability matrix. In this case, there will be 27 processes, which is checking each and every one of you, your what? Flight schedule. And then from there, deciding how to what? The time for the bus service. That particular action, and you will put them into what? A table like this. It's called requirement traceability matrix. So all the processes that will help us to achieve a particular requirement. Make sense? Good. Now, let's go to hotel booking. We're 27, and we will largely need 27 rooms. Now, the first process there will be what? Looking for a hotel that has at least 27 rooms. That's process 1. Process 2 will be booking for the hotel at a time when there will be what? 27 empty rooms. It means we must book 1 month ahead, 2 months ahead, 3 months ahead, or what have you. That's process 2. Process 3 is what? Making sure that payments are made to hold down those rooms before another client pays for them. Did you see the processes now? So I would write these 3 processes, and I will put the requirement there is what? Staying in the same hotel. and there are 3 things I need to pay attention to. Why does this help you as a project manager? Since I know what the requirement I am focused on achieving is, it will make me follow up on these 3 processes to ensure that there are no gaps in them. If I can win in those 3 processes, guys, I can win in meeting that requirement. That's exactly the power of the requirement traceability matrix. Is there any question in that regard? Any question, guys? We need to finish scope today. Okay. I trust you're all fine. Let's go. Clear? No. All right, cool. Now let's go. Let's look at the next thing. Now that you now have done yourself, you have clearly captured what the scope is. You've gathered it, you've put them together. You're going to come up with what you call a project scope statement. Now, this is not vague. This is a very detailed scope statement. This is not high level. This is a very detailed scope statement. What you got when you were getting the charter was a high level scope statement, but now you're getting something very detailed. You are the one who's going to put this out now. Now, it describes the project scope. It identifies the major deliverables, the assumptions, and the constraints. That's an example of a project scope statement document. Who prepared it? And then the full description. This will not be, you'll see where this will come in, because you're going to take this for approval. Now, let's keep going. I am clear on what the scope is. We're no longer in doubt what we've been called to work on. The next thing we're going to do is to break down the work into smaller bits and pieces. Now, the process of decomposing work into smaller pieces that are achievable is called the work breakdown. The process of decomposing work into smaller pieces, or what you call work packages, with lesser complexity, and that can be achieved with lesser time, is called a work breakdown. And the output is always what you call a work breakdown structure, WBS. Now let's think about our building, Burj Khalifa. Again. Now, we can break that building into a few parts. Let's say the very first one is substructure. Building the substructure will be the first one. The second one will be superstructure. That's the superstructure. The third one could be the roofing. The fourth could be landscaping. The fifth could be furnishing. Hello, can you guys hear me? Is it clear? Is my network all right?
Yes.
Yeah, let's go.
Okay.
Good.
So now we have about 5 areas now: substructure, superstructure, roofing, landscaping, and decorating. Perfect. That's okay. Let's keep going. 1, substructure. You can now further break down substructure from clearing the land, the digging, the putting of the block work into the ground. You now break them further. I hope that makes sense to you. So what we're doing at that point really is breaking the work into smaller bits and pieces. Look at the superstructure. We can actually break it down further into first floor, second floor, third floor, 4th floor, 5th floor, till 100 floors. And even within that first floor, you can still further break it down. The breaking down of work into manageable units is what we call decomposition, and it yields what? A work breakdown structure, like the example you're seeing on the screen. Good. When you have broken down work into smaller bits and pieces, often called work packages, so oftentimes you are not able to write details about each of the subunits, because it's like you can see there is no space. So 1.1. So you can now open what you call like a register or like a library, and then you will put 1.1 and explain what 1.1 means. You can say 1.1 means digging of the land. And 1.1 means digging of the land, and digging of the land will be managed by Abe. So Abe is in charge of digging the land. Abe will have 2 weeks only to make sure that the full digging of the land is completed. That's her role. She's responsible for it. You go to 1.2, you would say what 1.2 means. You would put a responsible person for it. That document, where you document the details around each and every work package, is called the work breakdown, Wbs Dictionary, a dictionary. Are we okay to that point? Are we fine to that point? All right. Okay.
Yes.
All right, cool. Now, I know planning could be a lot, guys. Trust me.
It is.
Someone said it is. Planning could be a lot. I'll soon let you guys go on break, go for the day. All right, let's keep going. What the Wbs Dictionary, what are the things that you will finally end up finding out in that place? What you call the code of account identifier is nothing much. It's the way you know the numbering. That's 1.1, 1.2, 1.3. That's basically what you have there. Description of the work, assumptions and constraints, responsible organization, or I could also say responsible individual. In this case, we assigned it to Abe for one of them. Schedule milestones. Are there milestones we want? If Abe is working on it for 2 weeks, are there milestones by week 1? Are we expecting anything from her? By week 2, what are we expecting from her? Schedule milestones. Associated schedule activities. So you want to break down her work and see the activities that are involved. Or after she's done, who will take over? Which other projects will take over? Now, you can actually look at, is there a lot you can look at there. What you also call the word acceptance criteria. What will be the criteria that I would measure to see if Abe's work is accepted or should be redone? Quality requirement. What are the quality requirements that are expected of Abe in this delivery? You see, guys, it could be whole detailed work. So let's keep moving. Now, we're getting very close to the end of the day. The project scope statement that you wrote, the work breakdown structure, and the Wbs Dictionary, all of these 3 documents is what you call the word scope baseline. A combination of the project scope statement, the Wbs, and the Wbs Dictionary, put them together is what you call the scope baseline. Because what? Why? These 3 documents describe exactly what the scope is. Good. Now, I said to you earlier that there are there's a big book called the Project Management Plan. And in this big book, there will be what? Other smaller books. One of those smaller books is going to be called the Scope Baseline. All right, keep going, and then we'll wrap up for today. I'll let you take a break. Okay. What I need you to understand today is this. When it comes to predictive, you have to clearly gather requirements. So it's very detailed. A lot of questions, you gather the entire requirements. When you're done gathering the entire requirements, then you will now build a scope. Now, however, when it comes to what Agile, it's not exactly the same. So like you saw earlier, we have the what? The product backlog. We can pick from there and form what? The sprint backlog or the sprint plan, and then go into work. I hope that makes sense for everyone. We had done a lot of that earlier. All right, so let's move. Okay. Noise from your background. Who is that? Sal, is it you? Okay. User stories. In Agile, what makes the product backlog is what we call the user stories. What is the user stories? A short description of required functionalities told from the user's point of view. So this is how the user wants his product. Yes, was it? Okay, let's take for instance, anyone here who his right size is a medium for t-shirt? Anyone here in this class whose right size is a medium? Is there anyone? Your right size is a medium. Okay. If we don't have any medium, okay, there's someone.
Yes.
Okay, good. Is there anyone here whose right size is a medium, but he likes wearing a large?
Depends on the clothing.
Good. No, okay, just for t-shirts right now. Just go with the t-shirts now.
Okay, so no.
Okay, how about for jackets?
Yes.
Good. Now, you see, that's his story. His right size is what? A medium. But for jackets, he prefers what? A large.
Large.
Now, that's a user story. That's an example of a user story. Short descriptions of required functionality. How do users require their phones? How do users require their clothing? That's user story. And these are the things that constitute the product backlog. Okay, I think I'm trying to make sure okay. Before I continue, I only have one slide to stop for today. Are there any questions?
Not for now.
Not for now. All right, good. In the absence of anyone, okay, Ofek, please ask.
Will you upload the presentation on the WhatsApp group? Can you hear me?
I'm hearing you clearly. Go ahead. I'm hearing you clearly.
Will you upload the presentation to the WhatsApp group?
Yeah, I will. I will. Lastly, for today, let's talk about tools and techniques for verifying scope. Now, we've talked a lot about trying to identify the scope. You see, you can do a good job trying to identify what do they really want me to do. You do a good job in that regard. Now, but once you are done identifying the scope, you need to do what you call verifying the scope. For instance, let's take for instance, let's take for instance that McDonald asked me to help him do something. Like, okay, like Martha's just asked me a question. I don't understand exactly what he wants. So it's hard for me to give a reply because I might give a reply that might not still answer what exactly he wants. So verifying scope is like you going back to the people that gave you the job, the project sponsor, and I'm telling them, am I really correct? I have been able to put together these ideas, but am I really correct? Good. At that point, they will tell you, yes, you're correct or you're not correct. If you don't verify scope, please don't start work. I have to repeat that. If you don't verify scope, please don't start work. Because you might be doing the wrong thing happily. What are the tools I would need to verify scope? A few of them for today. Definition of done. How would you know that what you asked me to do is what I did? You must give me, who sent me for the errand, give me a clear definition of done, a clear one. Another one is what? A definition of done just is like a checklist of criteria that if I meet these criteria, then I've done the job. Another one is what you call the definition of ready. A good example to understand this is when you're about to enter a lift. When you go to a lift and you press the lift, when the lift comes to your the floor where you are, the lift automatically opens its door, meaning I am ready for you to come in. So a definition of ready. Another one is what you call the acceptance criteria. What are the criteria that when I'm done with this work, you yourself will say, yes, well done, you've done well. You know, another thing that helps you to verify scope is what we call iteration reviews. You and I know what iterations mean. So if at the end of every iteration, we should do some reviews in what we call like a retrospection already. We said that like a retrospection. Reviewing an iteration is what we call iteration reviews. The last two are pretty basic. They are called analysis, variance and trend analysis. What is a variance analysis and what is a trend analysis? Variance, whenever you hear the word variance, what you should be thinking about is what was planned and what was actually done. What was planned and what was actually done. So when you subtract actually done from planned, if there is a difference, if it is not equal to 0, then there is a variance. When you hear the word trend, it means how have things been done over the last 5 years? So the manufacturing plant has been manufacturing 500 Pampers over the last few months. So every month it manufactures 500 Pampers. You understand? In the last 6 months, it's gone from 500 to 1,000 in an incremental of 100 Pampers every month. So 500, 600, 700, 800, and 1,000. That's a trend. So you study a trend to know if that's where they are going to. A good way to also understand trend analysis will be if you study the trend of the iPhone from iPhone 4 through to 13, you might see a pattern that evolves. And you would know if you're the one managing iPhone 14, you would know if there is something exactly they are looking out to achieve in this new iteration. All right, I'm going to take a pause here. I'm going to pause here.